Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video I wanted to talk about love at first sight synastry aspects. And before I get into that, I wanted to just define what I mean by that a little bit. So there's two aspects of this. One aspect, these are going to be physical attraction aspects that are quite instantaneously felt. Now, there's some signs or placements that are more prone to love at first sight. Fire sign Venuses are one of them. And more, fiery energy in general are going to be the ones who really feel things like instantaneously and categorize it as love at first sight. Whereas certain other placements definitely won't experience it as much, but they still might with these aspects. So there's the physical attraction and the physical compatibility that we can sometimes feel very soon in a relationship. Now, the other aspect of this is a bit deeper. So, this next part that I'm also going to talk about is what I would call instantaneous soul recognition or remembrance. Now, this will only apply to you if you believe in past lives, which I do, and that is when this one will be felt. It's an attraction that's actually not purely physical, but it is instant because there's this saying that, like, you keep the same eyes in every lifetime. So in that case, you could literally just look at someone in the eyes and feel an instant soul recognition, which in some cases, that could actually incite fear with some of these more difficult karmic connections. But in some cases, it might be an instant feeling of love. And I would consider that to be even stronger than these more physical aspects. So let's talk about it. I wanted to expand on this because I have a really short video on this that I just wanted to, make longer because you guys know I love to talk. I have Mercury and Gemini. I love to talk about this stuff, and I have Venus and Aries in the first house, so I'm very prone to this. I'm calling myself out when I'm saying fire sign Venuses tend to do this. So the first aspects that I want to talk about for love at first sight synastry. So obviously we have to talk about the ascendant. Now, the conjunction is going to be the most powerfully felt aspect to the ascendant, but the trine and the sextile are also really nice. The square can be more of a repulsion rather than an attraction at first. And the opposition can also be equally as strong as the conjunction, in some cases, maybe even more depending on the planet. So Venus to the ascendant is going to be ranked as the first one. Venus in the first house in synastry is also very strong for that feeling of love at first sight, even more so if it is exactly conjunct to the ascendant. And a nice sextile or trine can also produce pretty powerful effects, although not as strong. And the opposition, which you guys asked me a lot about, is also really nice, although I feel that it's a bit less physical and more of like a natural partnering, like we want to work together, we want to collaborate, but it can also be very attractive as well romantically. But the first house and the conjunction are going to really take the cake for that feeling of like looking at someone across the room and being like, that is my type. Now, the interesting thing about it is that, you might ask, well, who feels that, right? And I actually think that both people with the conjunction can really feel that attraction, and that these Venus aspects to the ascendant are actually that strong that they can go both ways in the synastry. So it's not just the house person or the Venus person seeing the house person as their ideal. It's actually a bit of both going here. So That is going to be classic. Then, of course, we have to talk about our next sexual planet. Now, Mars is a more selfish energy than Venus. So, Venus is a more love at first sight. Now, when we're going to talk about Mars, this is more of a sex at first sight or physical attraction at first sight. So, it might not contain enough of the romantic tenderness to really feel that feeling of love at first sight, but it can definitely create such a strong attraction so that, we want to potentially look for if there might be love there other than just the physical attraction. So Mars conjunct the ascendant, people talk about this all the time in synastry groups. I see it, like people talk about the most physically attractive aspects. I would definitely agree. I would even rank this as maybe number one of all, Mars conjunct the ascendant in synastry, especially if it's the woman's Mars. So like Venus conjunct the ascendant, the best is if it's like the man's Venus, or the woman's Mars, or whatever you identify as, right? Like more strongly. We all have masculine and feminine energies in us. So, whichever you identify as more, you can choose that one as the one that's going to be the most strong. But like in traditional heterosexual relationships, when it is the woman's Mars to the man's ascendant, he's going to be really embodying her type. And the same thing when it's the man's Venus to the woman's ascendant, then she's going to really be embodying his type, although they're both great. I mean, you can't have it. There's no bad way, right? These are just awesome aspects for attraction. So Mars conjunct the ascendant, Mars sextile or trine the ascendant. I just talked about that in a video not too long ago. Also really good. Not quite as strong as the conjunction. In this case, the conjunction definitely takes the cake. The square can also be kind of attractive, although also annoying, and the opposition, same thing, although there's more natural compatibility. There is still quite an attraction. So these aspects, Mars to the ascendant and Mars in the first house, although not as strong as if it's actually conjunct the ascendant, Mars in the first house in synastry can actually, same thing, both ways, a lot of attraction, a lot of a sexual attraction. The relationship might, like if you don't have other aspects that are romantic love, it might be a more selfishly motivated or primarily sexual connection, although it will probably be quite good at that. But yeah, like I said, so Mars is going to be more of the strictly physical attraction, which people with impulsive or highly sexual placements can interpret that as love as well. And it's commonly done. So like that. So we've got to talk about Venus and Mars, of course, to the ascendant. And then we've got to talk about, you guys love to talk about this too, Pluto to the ascendant. So we got to talk about the sexual planets first here. So Pluto is quite a bit different. Now, Pluto aspects to the ascendant are not going to be as significant if we're talking people born within a few years of your age. So Pluto is a generational planet. These aspects are going to be far more significant if we are talking relationships with a bit of an age gap. Because if you have Pluto conjunct, square, opposite, or trine, or sextile, your natal ascendant, and then someone who is born close to your birth date or within a few years when Pluto is sort of retrograding back and forth within those degrees, this is less about your synastry and more about your own natal aspect of Pluto to your ascendant. So when we're talking these outer planets, it's really going to be way more significant and only significant, really, in my opinion, if we do have a bit of an age gap, or at least we are born, so you can look at both of your natal charts, we're born with Pluto at a bit of a distance from each other by degree, okay? So, and same with Pluto in the house overlays, just side note, those aren't going to really matter unless you have a bit of an age gap in your relationship. That's something I wish I could tell every single person in the world who is learning synastry, because I feel like this is sometimes where people spend a lot of time that is unnecessary when it's like relationships where you're very close in age. You're just bringing up each other's natal issues, which is great and perfect, but it's not like, oh, your Pluto's conjunct my Pluto. Like, that does not matter at all. So that's the disclaimer with Pluto ascendant aspects in synastry. Okay, you guys, that's what I wish I could tell everybody, like yelling from the rooftops with the megaphone. Okay, now that that's been said, Pluto aspects to the ascendant, if you do have a bit of an age gap, are wildly attractive, potentially even overpowering the effects of Mars or Venus conjunct the ascendant. And it is a lot deeper. There is more potential for it to become toxic, the Pluto partner potentially being threatened by the ascendant person's persona and the way that they act, or even their physical body and strength in some cases. So it's the potential for a kind of darker attraction, dark feminine, dark masculine kind of thing going on here. But the level of physical attraction, and it can be quite instantaneous with Pluto as well. This isn't something that necessarily has to build, although that will increase it and it will become stronger over time rather than less strong. But it is something that is like, you can see them from across the room, or wherever you are walking down the street, they're on the other side of the road, their Pluto conjuncts your ascendant or opposes it, and you're just like, whoa, who is that person? And it's very powerful. This too can also incite a bit of fear in both people, because Plutonic relationships are not for the faint of heart. They are really quite intense and powerfully transforming, and they don't become that way by being easy or simple. They become that way from really bringing up the depths of like fears and insecurities within each person. And if you're asking who feels it with these ascendant aspects, I really do think they both do feel it. The Pluto person could potentially feel more threatened. And the strongest aspects, of course, are going to be the conjunction, and then the opposition, and the square third, and then the trine fourth, and sextile fifth, okay? And the quincunx could also be included, although I wouldn't consider it being instantaneous. Like these other aspects, and the trine and the sextile are much more harmonious and easy to deal with, although still really having that same level of physical attraction, perhaps even more compatibility in some cases. So these aspects to the ascendant are very strong for physical attraction, and very the Pluto one is going to be the more intense one, the Venus one is going to be the most loving, and the Mars one is going to be the most purely sexual or physical, but also very active together. And it's quite a boost of energy when you have someone's Mars aspecting your ascendant. Yeah. So, okay, what else do I want to say? Now I want to get into some of the soul attraction aspects, love at first sight at the soul level. So there's just two that I want to talk about today. And of course, this is not a definitive list. There, of course, can be more, but I just wanted to talk about the ones that I feel like are the strongest for love at first sight. Now, the first ones that I want to talk about, and you wouldn't think of the moon as an aspect of like love at first sight, because we know the moon doesn't necessarily represent our physical selves, right? It's our emotional self. It's our deeper selves. It's like our habitual emotional patterns, right? But there also is a level of telepathy with moon synastry. And the moon does also represent an aspect of our past life self, okay? So this aspect, moon conjunct the south node or moon conjunct the north node. I have personally found, and I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of clients, people who have found that these aspects can produce a very love at first sight feeling. Or even beyond love, it's like a knowing at first sight feeling. Now, I have personally experienced it both sides of this. I think having your moon conjunct with someone's south node in synastry definitely promotes this feeling of instant soul recognition and a very deep emotional tie. And there can be a lot of love and protectiveness for that person. Now, the moon conjunct the north node can also create very strong feelings of emotional attraction. So this goes beyond physical attraction. This is emotional attraction because we feel like we have found someone who can really see us, even if no words are spoken. We feel like they could see us and they get us on the deepest level. And the North Node person really feels like the moon person, like emotionally, is everything that they need to fulfill their destiny. And the moon person feels seen on this very deep but comfortable level. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, actually, but it can be like the most seen that you ever have been. So I have seen these conjunctions, and by the way, if your moon is conjunct someone's north node, it's opposite their south node, and if your moon is conjunct someone's south node, it's opposite the north node. So that's another really good tip for beginner astrologers, because I feel like some people don't know that that's the same aspect. So yeah, those can be incredibly powerful for an instantaneous feeling of emotional connection, which can be felt as love at first sight. Okay. It's more emotional than maybe some of these other aspects, and deeper, but it definitely can get the heart going and feeling some very strong things. Now, with that being said, any of these aspects are not enough on their own to say that this relationship is going to be a forever relationship, right? There would have to be a more compatibility than just shown by like one of these, but these can definitely show a feeling of love at first sight, so not necessarily long-term compatibility, okay? Now, one last thing that I will say here, one last aspect I will say here, because this video is getting quite long. The ascendant conjunct the north or south node. Now, this one can also create that feeling of love at first sight, or comfort at first sight, or knowingness. So this instant soul recognition. Now, the north node conjunct the ascendant can be a bit trickier. There can also be some triggered feelings, but the physical attraction might be one of the strongest aspects of physical attraction, which is very interesting because you would think of the nodes as like a more spiritual point. But it's interesting. I believe in Indian astrology or Vedic astrology, which I don't actually use, although I do have clients who use that, and it works great. Like it's just whatever works for you, right? I think in Indian astrology, they say that the node, like the north node, they interpret it as like bad, actually. But they interpret it as like this intense desire and need. Like the north node is like this like need that we have that's like very powerful. And I could definitely see that with the ascendant conjunct the north node aspect. It feels like this insatiable need to get together physically. Even though the personality, the ego, can really be challenged by it. And then, yeah, the ascendant conjunct the south node is also very powerful and more of a feeling of like, I've known you before. And so these feelings of love at first sight that come from these more soul love aspects, I would say, can be even stronger than the more physical aspects, because it's like this instant soul connected feeling. And it can be very hard to let go of a relationship when you have these aspects. But there also does come this point sometimes, if there isn't other indicators of long-term compatibility, where like the contract is completed with these nodal aspects and something will just flick off of both of you, and all of a sudden it's like, nope, there's no more attraction, there's no more connection. The contract is complete, it's done. And then that's also very interesting as well, how these powerful feelings of love at first sight that you once had for someone can just instantly vanish, and now you just see them from a more detached way. So that is also something that I have seen. So I'd love to know, what are your love at first sight synastry aspects? Would you agree with these? Or do you have some better ones? I would love to hear your thoughts, you guys. I love you guys. I'm sending you all the love. Thank you for watching this video. I do offer one-on-one sessions as well. My links are always below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Love you guys. Bye.